Good evening, members. Welcome to the CEP meeting, first one since the summer. Hope you all had a nice holiday, enjoyed the typical British weather. Before we start, I do have to read out the fire evacuation procedures and a number of other information notes. So there are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located at the side of this room. Exit through reception and meet in the War Memorial Park. The meeting is being webcast live on the internet and will be available to view on YouTube after the meeting. Just to confirm. Another reminder, so regarding microphones, please can I remind members and officers that in order to be heard clearly within the room by those present and on the webcast, that you speak directly into your microphone. The microphone stem can be moved so that it is as close to your mouth as possible. And if you have your mobile phone, please switch it off or on to silent. Thank you. Before we move into the main agenda, I do have a few opening remarks for myself, and just to remind everybody on the committee that this is my first time as a chair, so please bear with me. I'm learning as we go. If you've got any suggestions or feedback at the end, please let me know, and I'll take it all on board. I guess I do have a number of expectations for how we're going to run the committee as a whole. I've asked the officers in a similar fashion to the Chief Executive that they aren't to provide updates to the committee, that those will be communicated in the best method for the topic that is trying to be given an update on. So that might be an all members meeting or an email, depending on what it is. I'm hoping that the committee will start to participate with a little bit of effective scrutiny of officers and the Cabinet in particular. Also, we are the Partnerships Committee, so some effective scrutiny of the partnerships that are working with Basingstoke and Dean Council, and also some more task and finish groups, which more on in a minute. I am acutely aware that on most occasions when members are asking questions that they usually have a follow-up with a supplementary. It's just easier if you have got a supplementary. I don't mind you asking that straight away. You don't need to ask my permission to ask the supplementary. However, just be mindful that other members do or will have questions to ask, so try not to go on for too long and make sure that the supplementary relates to the answer that you've been received. And I'm hoping that there won't be a need for too many questions, because as it does state on the top of the agenda papers that members should be seeking for questions to be answered in advance where possible. For tonight's meeting, I do plan on taking item 7 before item 6, which is the work programme. It's purely because there's some pink papers within 6, so I think just for the flow of the meeting itself, we can take 7 first. Is there any questions or queries before we move on? Cool. So apologies for absence and substitutions. I have Councillor Phillimore is being replaced by Councillor Durrant, and I have received apologies from Councillor Howard Sorrell. Are there any other apologies or substitutions? Excellent. The next one then is the appointment of a vice chair. So we need to appoint a vice chair for the next municipal year. It could be from any group, as was updated at the last council meeting. Do we have any nominations for the position of vice chair? Councillor Vaux.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Compton-Burnett.
Thank you very much. Any further? Councillor Durrant. And no, that's okay. So obviously need to move into a vote now. All of those for Councillor Vaux. Sorry, Councillor Compton-Burnett. Sorry. and all for Councillor Slimin. Yep. Councillor Slimin, I believe that's you elected as the Vice Chair for the committee for the next year. Do you accept the position?
Yes, thank you.
Do you want to seat yourself over there for the rest of the meeting and then we can talk for the future? Yeah. Excellent. Okay, item number 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Urgent matters then. I'm not aware of any urgent matters. Has anybody got any urgent matters they'd like to raise? Oh. Okay, minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of July 2023. Are the committee agreed that the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of July are an accurate record? Brilliant, thank you. I shall sign them afterwards with Ellie. So moving on then, we're going to move item 7, which is the work programme. I haven't received any recommendations or any forms from any of the members. So as this was put in place only a month or so ago, I think we should keep with that. Has anybody got any recommendations tonight? Councillor Vo.
Thank you, Chair. I was a little bit confused about what the item on the 13th of March is, review of registered partners, ASB services. We talked about having an update from the community safety team and having an opportunity to talk about their priorities and what they were planning going forward, and a review of the final year. It's sort of something that has come to CEP regularly. So I don't know whether that is meant to be a community safety thing or whether it's something completely different. I'm not quite sure, but that was requested before. And then it would be helpful, I think, if as Chair you could update us what the plans are around the LRNA and the playing picture strategy, etc., which was also talked about, but I think might be happening somewhere else. And if it is happening somewhere else, it would be useful to know.
Thank you, Councillor Vo. In terms of the LRNA, I haven't been given an update, but I can provide one via email to members. I'm a bit conflicted with the first one, with the community safety one. As I mentioned, I'm conscious that updates take a lot of officer time, just to provide an update. If there is anything more we want from that, then I'm in all agreement that we can bring something forward. But we need to have a reason as to why we're getting them in and what we expect from them in terms of recommendations, that sort of stuff.
Okay, Chair, if I could follow up then. So what the purpose is not just to give an update, it is about reflecting back on the previous year and how ward councillors feel has the community safety team been interacting at the ward level in the areas that ward councillors would be expecting them to. And as they plan a year ahead all the time on what they see as being the priorities, it's an opportunity for the community safety team to collect the views of CEP on whether they're going in the right direction or whether there's actually a conflict in that. So I absolutely agree. It shouldn't just be this is what's been going on. It should be, does that, this is an overview and scrutiny committee, so we're scrutinising that. Does that feel right to us as ward councillors with our feet on the ground?
Very much understood. I will talk to Ellie and officers afterwards to look at how we can program that in. Oh, yeah, Tom.
So just to mention, so at the last time this came to CEP, the agreement or the decision or the recommendation from CEP members was that we would run a members briefing as part of the member development programme. So that is something that we are still trying to schedule. There's a lot of training and member sessions that are run throughout the year. So we're just trying to find a suitable time for that. So that would form officers presenting to, as an open invitation to all members, come along and find out what work we do internally, but also we invite partners, so the police would attend as well. To give that opportunity to speak to the police about concerns that they may have.
Thank you, Tom. Would that suit
Yes,
the needs?
Chair. I mean, I think what would be helpful if we could have a programme of what topics are going to be members' briefings, because there is a little bit of, at the moment, is what's going to come to committee and what's going to go as an all-member briefing. I absolutely agree. It gives an opportunity for all members to interact with the community safety issue, which is a huge thing and it is important to everybody. But it's difficult for us to make recommendations about what's coming here if we don't know what's going into all member briefings. So if we could have a schedule of those, I think it would be really, really helpful. Thank you.
Agreed, thank you. Councillor Slimming.
Thank you. I might be able to help on the question about the ASB services in March. I was then the chair of CEP when we started looking at this agenda, and Councillor Sustain actually asked that we actually particularly look at antisocial behaviour services. So it sort of ties in with community safety, but obviously it's a bit broader, and perhaps working with our social housing partners where they do have difficulty with ASB. And that is where this item has come from. If that helps at all, make it clearer. And I apologise, there's obviously been a changeover of committee chair, and I was there at that bit, and Alex obviously wasn't. So apologies, I hope that's clearer.
Thank you, Councillor Slimming. So as apologies, Councillor Compton-Burnett.
Thank you. Two things, please. One of them is it would be fantastic to have a date for the health and wellbeing strategy. I can see it there, but it would be lovely to schedule it as soon as possible, please, because I know we're moving from a wellbeing strategy to a health and wellbeing strategy, so the sooner we can get working on it, the better. And the second thing is that looking back on the minutes of last time, we requested a full list of policies and strategies scheduled for review, which is, I suppose, a bit like Jenny's thing, but also looking at these are the various policies that we are involved in, and we should start thinking about that sort of thing. Is that being compiled, or what's the status of that, please?
Yeah, so I spoke to Tom yesterday about this, and hopefully I'll get an update.
Yeah, apologies. I'm not that loud, am I? Yeah, I will circulate that, so we'll have to do that after today's meeting. So apologies that hasn't been done before today, but very much work in progress.
Any further comments, recommendations from the committee? No? Okay, so as I sort of stated in my opening remarks about scrutiny of cabinet members and partnerships in particular, I was hoping that we put a proposition to the committee around what third-party partnerships we would like in to scrutinise, and in what sort of form we would like from them. I understand that scrutiny have had one on sort of Stagecoach and the transport strategy, and it would be good if we could start looking at third parties and who we really want to bring in. The second thing is we have the Aquadrome and the Leisure Park master plan coming through in January. I know that members last time asked for something to come forward a bit earlier. I've been talking to Sarah Longthorpe about this, and the recommendation that I'd like to put to the committee is that a task and finish group be put together on the leisure park element, due to the fact that the Aquadrome works is already in progress, as in, you know, it's already going through business cases, etc. So really looking firstly for nominations or volunteers for a task and finish group, which would ideally start in November. Councillor Vaux, Councillor Compton-Burnett, anybody? Councillor Slimming, Connor? So if we work with Ellie afterwards to then put together the task and finish group and agree terms of reference, etc., and what it is you actually want to put forward as part of of that group. That'd be great. In terms of scrutinising third parties then, is there any recommendations? Councillor Golding.
Thank you. I think it would be really good to look at our partnership with BPA. We obviously do work really closely, and it's particularly important from the kind of community side of things as well. So potentially looking at any service level agreements we have with them and how those are going.
Yeah, I think that would be great, especially the importance that they have in the community. Councillor Compton-Burnett, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I think it would be really good to talk to the Integrated Care Board, please.
And what would be the expectation in terms of bringing them in?
Particularly Basingstoke Health Services. Sorry. It would be good to look at it from our point of view about how we can work with them, and also the things that we think that we would value that they did for us in terms of services. But I think at the moment it feels like we're working separately, and government policy is very much to bring us together, and I think the more that we can do to promote that partnership working, the better.
Brilliant. We'll get that looked at as well. Councillor Connor.
Just to push back a little bit on that, do we have, I get the partnership working, but do we have the authority at this level? I thought it was a Hampshire County Council thing with the integrated board.
It's both. So the King's Fund recently provided a really good overview of the borough council working relationship, or the best type of working relationship with an integrated care board, the sorts of things that we can do in terms of community support for them, the services they can provide in the community with our help. There's an awful lot that we can do if we work together.
Are you? You okay with that, Councillor Connor? Yeah. Any further recommendations before we move on? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll work with officers to get all of that programmed in, and those on the task and finish group you'll be hearing from us shortly. Okay, on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the council-owned community centres, the revised lease and service level agreement approach. I believe Councillor James was supposed to introduce this, however he's unable to make it, so we have now got Councillor Harvey. So Councillor Harvey, if you'd like to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. This report's coming to committee this evening because we want to hear what your views and opinions are on the paper and the direction of travel that's set out as Cabinet. And it's important to us because we all value our community centres. We have many of them in the borough. They are wonderful facilities for our communities, and they do a tremendous amount of good work that we support and many of our partners support. And they do an awful lot of work that our partners operate out of, indeed. So the relationship is really important to us. In taking this paper forward, what we are specifically looking at is how our relationship with those community centres can be supported. We know there are leases that need to be renewed. We know there are relationships that need to be clearly developed so that there is clarity between the borough and the community centre. They know where they stand, they know what the expectations are, and we know where we can then support them to be successful. So it's both a role here in terms of supporting them in terms of administration, in terms of the structure of the relationship that we have, leases, the technical side, and there is also a side that our amazing community team, led by Sam Charlton and their team, do to support the actual work that goes on in those community centres. And that has become quite apparent, has it not, over the past week, in terms of the issues that the West Side have faced and how our other community centres have stepped up and been tremendously helpful. So the paper's real focus is on community centres. We don't go beyond that at the moment. The real focus is on the leases and the structures. But beyond that, there is that which sits beneath it, which is equally as important as I highlight. So hopefully this evening we'll to hear what you have to say about the paper and about our community centres so that Cabinet can take that into account when we make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. We're also fortunate to have Angela Cope here tonight. Angela, I believe this is your first CEP, so do you want to give a quick introduction and then introduce the report as well, or your section?
Thank you. It does seem a bit of baptism by fire.
anyway. This paper is a collaborative piece of work between Property Services, Connected Communities and Legal Services to regularise BDBC-owned properties, owned community centres leases to allow for a more harmonised approach and responsibility between the landlord and tenant, a set of SLAs sitting behind these leases to ensure that the property is maintained correctly, thus reducing risk to BDBC and or the tenant trustees in terms of building maintenance and service provision. The aim of this paper is to ensure that a consistent approach for leases for community centres and to help clarify responsibilities of all parties, whilst ensuring that the centres continue to run for the benefit of the local community. Therefore, we would welcome the committee's views to help shape the proposed approach and to enable the teams involved to progress with working with the community associations to put new lease arrangements in place.
Thank you, Angela. Councillor Harvey.
And just one more thing to add, as I'm sure we all do, some of us may have relationships with community centres, and I am a trustee of the Oakridge Hall for All. I put that on the record this evening as a note of interest. Although I'm not on the committee, I want to make that clear.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. So we do have pink papers listed on the agenda, and I propose that we go into a closed session just if any of members have got comments or questions on the pink papers. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the pink papers? Okay, so in order for us to discuss those, we need to go into closed session. So I do need to read the following resolution. Firstly, do I get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Gotti. So, pursuant to Section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting on the ground that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing it, and therefore that exempt information is likely to be disclosed as defined in the appropriate paragraphs 3 of Schedule 12A of the Act. In order to discuss the papers, the webcast will be turned off and it will be turned back on once the discussion is over.